Hey, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrated Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Um, are you ready for ultimate violence? Are you prepared for it? I would say that 99% of you are not, and that's all right. Well, it's not all right. It can be dangerous, but good for you, because that means you haven't lived a life of violence. Because the 1% of those who are ready for ultimate violence are ready because they've experienced it. They've lived a life of it, and that has some negatives on its own, of its own, as those who have can can attest. But um, what I want to, following up on my question, are you? I want to talk about the the importance of being ready for it. When we see what's going on in our country today. You look at the situation in Springfield, Ohio. You look at the situations in Aurora, Colorado, and these are just the ones that have made the news. This stuff is going on all the time. It's an invasion. There's no question about that. But I think that people have had a tendency to ignore the potential impact on the individual with this. We see it as a macro problem, but it can be a micro problem too. It can, even though it's destroying our country, it can reach out and at a moment's notice and destroy you as well. I did a video sometime ago explaining how, if I were one of these T organizations, how I would disrupt the entire country by coordinated attacks on, you know, just a few small towns across the country, and how easy it would be to take down a small town with not that many people, you know. And I think it was kind of in one of my many responses to the try that in a small town people who don't realize uh, that these things don't happen that often in small towns, which is why there is this tendency to think that to overestimate the safety in a small town, and in the past that's kind of been true. That's no longer true anymore. Um, and so this is kind of a particular warning for those of you who live maybe in the more rural or small town areas, but it's for everybody as well. I mean, Aurora, Colorado is not a small town, right? Springfield, Ohio. Yeah, I looked it up. It's 58,000 people. Uh, Metropolitan area 130 something. For some people that's a big city. For most of us, no, that's not a big city at all. What we're seeing our country targeted. We're seeing our cities targeted by the administration, which is working. It's in the collar and leash of the world globalists. Uh, but we're seeing our cities now, our smaller cities also, targeted with the influx of illegal aliens, with the Tren de Aragua and the Haitians. A couple of people. Matter of fact, Mike Morton, if he's watching this, he will eventually. But Mike's he's a friend of mine, and he's one of our people over on Patreon as well. And he's former law enforcement from he's both military and law enforcement uh, from Colorado, and he's the one, by the way, that wrote the books about the deep state. I'll give him a plug right here. Uh, great books about understanding the deep state. Just go on Amazon and look up Michael Morton, uh, understanding the deep state, uncovering the deep state. His latest one about big pharma is a good one. Um, but he is contracted uh, all over all over the place. He lives down in Colombia, the country in South America. And he and a couple of guys were over at my house not long ago, and he made the statement. He said the only place in the world that he was ever uncomfortable being in was Haiti. And and I think that speaks volumes. So, Mike, what I started to say, if when you watch this, go ahead and feel free to leave however lengthy a response you want to. Probably be better to put it on the Patreon channel, because we have a more astute. Well, I'll just say it's better to put it over there. But when you have these people coming in, these people bring a level of violence that the average American can't even begin to understand. Too many Americans think they understand a lot that they don't, to be honest. I have no idea whether it's the same with Canadians and Australians and Europeans. I don't know. I know about America. And I know that most Americans have an overinflated idea of their ability to handle emergency situations. And I've seen enough people in emergency situations to know that most people pretty much collapse and fall apart, to be honest. They have this idea that they're very well prepared, they're very well equipped, because they haven't even really played the deep mind game. They just kind of see, they've seen life on the surface. They think that life and the world is the way they see the world every day, which we enjoy a very insulated existence here in the United States, to be honest. Most people who live in fairly nice areas. Now, if you live down in the hood, you have a much different perspective. Or if you have worked a job, whether military and law enforcement, where you see the base level of humanity on a daily basis, you understand. But most people don't. Most people don't. And it's a matter of experience. You have to have the experience in order to truly understand it. And because most Americans don't, they're sadly unprepared to deal with it when it happens. Kelly sent me something today. A bunch of people apparently making statements to the Springfield, Ohio city commissioners, complaining about what had been allowed, all these Haitians coming into their town. And like I said, Springfield, Ohio is a population of about 58,000, and they have brought between 10 and 20,000 Haitians into Springfield. What does that do? It doesn't just overload the community services, although it does. And let me say this right now. This is why I said that there are particular dangers in living in the smaller towns, because when when problems occur in smaller towns, they simply don't have the emergency services to handle it, and the people do not rise up. I know there's this idea that people will rise up and take care of the problems, and they won't. They won't. I mean, they haven't. We've seen this happen time and time and time again. One of my favorite lessons when I would tell people, watch the movie High Noon. Are you familiar with that? Yeah, watch the movie High Noon. And Clint Eastwood did kind of one that was along the same lines. What was it? I don't remember. But anyway, that's right. People will talk a big game, and when it comes time to do something, now they ain't there. They're just not there. And that creates a big problem, because the people who are there to take care of it, law enforcement, emergency services, they're overwhelmed. They're simply not the people there to deal with it. Now, there are some who will stand up, but they're going to be busy taking care of their families. They're going to protect their families. They're for the most part not going to run down and try to save the community or the little town or the city. Okay. In order to prepare yourself for this, you need to understand a couple of things, and I've talked about this. This is one of the basic things that I would teach when I taught self-defense and martial arts and combatives and all these things many years ago. And I would explain to people that a couple of very important things. I've mentioned them here before. I think they were included in some of my very first videos. And the first thing is that an attack or a situation, a dangerous situation, may happen suddenly, but it rarely happens uh, without any evidence, right? Hang on a second. Somebody disturbed me by calling me. I'll be right back. Okay, where was it? So anyway, an attack or whatever, it may happen suddenly, but it never happens uh, without some kind of clue. And the guy that says the guy that gets beat up in the bar, and he tells the police, "Man, that guy just came over. He just started wailing on me for no reason. I don't know what happened." Well, you missed the cues. You've been staring at his girlfriend for a half an hour, and you didn't see him glaring at you. Uh, that's a funny example, but that is so. Attacks can happen seemingly suddenly, but they all start with something. Okay, and if you pick up the clues, you see it coming. Most people don't pick up the clues. Most people don't see it coming until the attack is right there, and then it's they're fighting out of a hole, and that feeds into the second thing. And I say that whenever you're attacked or any kind there's that kind of problem, you have three enemies, and the first is confusion, the second is fear, and the third is the attacker themselves or the situation. And most people who haven't lived a life of dealing with violence don't understand how evil people can be. Uh, uh, they don't see it coming. They don't anticipate it, and so they see problems, but they complain about them, and they somehow think that complaining about them is dealing with them. Oh my gosh, I can't believe all these people are coming into our town. And then all of a sudden, you have robberies, you have rapes, you have home invasions, you have this, you have that, you have people, killing your ducks and geese at the pond and taking home and cooking them, and it's now it's beyond it. Well, your first enemy is confusion, and that is simply you go through this. Oh, it can't be happening. It can't be happening to me. It can't be happening to me now. It's the old kind of denial. And as a person goes through that process, they're freezing themselves because they're not thinking about how to respond. Okay, and then very often when they get through this, and look at it. Talk to victims. Talk to so many victims and or even neighborhoods. And I've said this before too. Uh, the latest murder in a big city, right? And the news crew will go down there and interview some woman, and she'll be saying, "I just can't believe that it happened here. This is a nice neighborhood. Everybody gets along and all this." And you're thinking, "Man, this is Hood Central. This place has been dangerous for 50 years." But see, to her, and it's normalcy bias. To her, it's her neighborhood. She's shocked. She's surprised, right? And then of course you get the ones who are a little wiser and go, "Hey, yeah, that's a problem. I never leave home without my gun in my hand." Well, most people, when they come through this confusion that comes out of denial and all that, and then they come out of that fog, and then they find when they finally reach the point that they're thinking a little more clearly, and they realize they're in the middle of a problem, and they don't know what to do about it. Then that kind of evolves into fear. Oh my gosh, this is not going to end up well for me. Okay, and then most people will start to respond too late, in kind of an animalistic response of just trying to survive. And they'll try to fight back, even though they don't have any fighting skills because they haven't taken any time to learn any fighting skills. And it does usually end up badly for them because they're already fighting out of a hole. They're fighting three enemies, and this is why the confusion, fear, and the attacker themselves. And this is why I always, stress training. Training. First off, if you can get experience, get out there and get it. But most people can't. Okay, most people can't, and many who could won't, because it takes. It takes a big slice out of your life to go out and get some experience in violent life. Many people don't want to do it. I understand that. I mean, I remember I just telling Kelly that I was thinking back when I lived to bounce around. I was a bounce around guy. But when I started getting a little older, all I wanted was a peaceful life. Well, it didn't turn out that way. That's the way it goes. But that's for the most part what most people like. They want a peaceful life. But they have this idea, but they live a more exciting life vicariously. Sadly, grown men who will play these video games, I don't even know what they're called, these war games where they think they're actually shooting people and blah blah blah, and so they have this. They're they're living a fantasy world, and when you live a fantasy world, it keeps you away from living a real life, the real world. So most people, they're not going to be prepared. But this is why I do suggest if you can get experience, get out there and get you some. Because nothing replaces experience. I don't care how much training you have. And I'm not putting down training. Training beats no training unless it's bad training, and then bad training is worse than no training because very often, uh, you'll learn things that are wrong. And there's plenty of people out there, from the martial arts to gun stuff to every place else, who are teaching just total crap because they've never actually done it. They've learned it out of a book or for somebody else who'd never done it either. And so they're training in things that have, absolutely none, well, little, if absolutely none practical application. When real life shows up, you're gonna find yourself in a hole. And so if you can get the experience, good. If you can't, try to get some good training. But then also train yourself in your mind. Start thinking about and studying the horrible things that can happen. Expand your mind. Use your imagination. Read the news. See what happens. I always tell people. I always warn people about home invasions. And if you want to really see what can happen, this wasn't actually a home invasion. It was a street abduction. But read the report of what was it? The Kristen Newsom torture murders down in Knoxville, Tennessee. Read those. You can't believe the horrible things. Matter of fact, I'm in the middle of a chapter now in my new book where I am describing horrible things that people do to other people. It's not the Stone Mod. It's the modern mob book. Uh, but I've also written about that in the Stone Mod series, the horrible things people do to other people. Read about those, and then internalize that. Realize it can happen to you. It can happen to your loved ones. It's not just something that happens out there somewhere else. The universe is not covering you with. Now God might protect you, but the universe is not protecting you in a little bubble that's going to keep all badness from you. It's just not the way it works. Horrible things happen to otherwise good people all the time. And the ones that do the worst are the ones who didn't think about it, aren't ready for it, and because they didn't think they had to. Well, violence is coming, in my opinion. I think that the potential for violence is coming. It's increasing exponentially. Don't you just love to use that word, exponentially? It makes you sound so smart. And I think we're going to see violence here like we've never seen before, and it's coming. It's in our country. It's coming to your town. You are responsible. Always remember this, just like all preparedness, you're responsible for your preparedness. You are responsible for your safety. And you're responsible for the safety of those who depend on you. And in order to be able to defend against violence, you have to be capable of great violence yourself. And that can be tough for a lot of people. And it is a balance that many of us will tell you, you know, I don't know if it's impossible to live a normal life, if you're prepared for violence because you have the background in it. But you have to walk that line. You have to balance your life between hopefully having a nice life and a peaceful life if life allows that, and being ready for maximal violence yourself at a moment's notice when it comes, because when it comes, you have to be ready. It's past time to get ready. Let me have a sip. So You know how I do things here. I don't sit down and go through all the well, get this for this and get that for that, and here's a piece of gear that's going to solve that, and here's it now, because I tell you what, it's all in here. It's being ready, getting ready, having the heart, having the skills, having the experience if you have it, and having the willingness. I would say that the old saw, ready, willing, and able. Well, um, I would say that most Americans lack all three. To be honest, I'm not trying to insult anybody, and I hope I'm not insulting you, but that's just the way of it. I've dealt with people for many, many, many years, and I know that most Americans aren't ready, willing, and able. They'll say they are. They think they are. Oh yeah, I'm ready. Nobody better. You see in the comments, nobody better come against me. Okay, well, I've seen too often when people came against somebody, and the guy ends up either on a gurney going to the hospital, the morgue, or sitting there on the curb bleeding, and kind of whining about, well, I wasn't ready. They better not get me when I'm ready. Okay. uh, and able comes from the ability to dispense the proper force, and right in between those two is the willing. Okay? So you have to be willing, and that means that you are ready, and you're not having to fight yourself up through the fog of confusion and fear. So that's Uncle Steve's thoughts for this morning. If you want, our country sadly is becoming much more dangerous than it ever has been before. Well, I mean, no, that's not true. I mean, the pioneers going out on the plains, right, and being attacked by the Indians, that was more dangerous. But it's in recent history, in the last 100 years, as a whole, our country is becoming a very, very dangerous place, and you need to be ready for it. Okay? All right. Hey, I'm almost I think I'm caught up on my books. Matter of fact, I don't think I even had any to show you. But if anybody who wants to buy the books from me, again, now, and I've been saying, get them through Amazon because I was sold out. I think I'm totally caught up with, I think I sent out the last ones that were on, that were backed up yesterday. So if you want to buy the books from me again, the Stonemont series, look down below, stonemont.us. You can buy the books from me again. We should have all the mugs sent out, maybe today, but definitely tomorrow, I think. We had so many orders, it was just, we've been fighting to keep our head above water on these. Thank you, guys. I'm glad you all love the mugs so much, and we're doing our best to get them out there. So I'm not gonna push the mugs again until I know that we have caught up with all of our orders. I know if you want to order them, you can get those through the stonemont.us website. Just be prepared to wait a little bit. Okay. If you want my books through Amazon, right down below the link to Amazon. Do that. But I love you ordering my books from me because I get to sign them and write a little note in there for you and all that. And we do have a special one-click option. The whole set plus the Stonemont notebook that you might be interested. And people say, I've seen it in the comments when people will recommend to other people, buy the whole set, because if you just buy the first book, then you've got to wait to get the second book, and you'll want to keep reading. And that's very nice of you all, by the way. Very nice of you. I'm glad. When a guy writes a bunch of books, he wants people to enjoy them, and I'm glad that you do, and learn from them. So, anyway, we live in a violent world, and it's becoming more violent. Simple as that. You have to be ready. Okay? And when it comes, you're it. Nobody's coming to help you. Unless you got good friends close by. But for the most part, you're it, because people don't realize when violence comes, it happens right now. There's really not time for your next door neighbor to get over and help you. It's happening. You have to be ready. Okay? You all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.